Hello there, ladies and gents. I've had a cold for quite some time, which you may or may not still be able to hear, but I have to make content. I must make content. So here's a hot and tasty review for you, for real friends. Let's do it. So last night I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, and here's what I thought of it. I went into Ant-Man and the Wasp with somewhat higher expectations than with the first one. With the first one, I didn't think it would be any good, but I saw it because I really liked Edgar Wright, and even though he stopped being involved in the movie due to like internal conflicts or whatever, because Marvel is terrible, I still saw it, and it was a mediocre movie. It was okay. Nobody wants to say it because it's Marvel, but it wasn't a great movie. And this one admittedly looked like much better, so I went into this one with slightly higher expectations, and yeah, here are my thoughts. I'm going to start with the characters. So, the titular characters, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Well, actually, all the characters in general. The worst part of this movie is just with how little we really get out of these characters. I fucking love Ant-Man now. Paul Rudd, it might just be Paul Rudd. He just is a very charismatic figure. He is just great. He's really great in this movie. Evangeline Lilly does a good job too as the Wasp, but neither one really gets as much love as you'd want them to get. Like, there's like a weird number of characters in this movie. The antagonist Ghost is also fantastic, and I appreciate that Marvel was not just going with the whole Red Skull or Whiplash or forgettable ass. Red Skull's pretty good. More like Whiplash or like any of Iron Man's villains. How they're just like, oh, I'm the opposite of you, and I want to kill you because you're good and I'm bad. Like, since Killmonger and Thanos, they've really been kind of stepping up their villain game, and it's evident with Ghost that they're doing the same thing. But even still, we get just enough about Ghost so that we're like sympathetic towards her, but it's not enough. Like, it's not as much as you want there to be. And there's also another antagonist who I'm not going to spoil, but they're cool. Ant-Man's cool. The Wasp is cool. Hank is cool. Luis and his crew are cool. But there's just so many characters that I don't think this movie knows what to do with them, and they don't really change or develop at all whatsoever in this movie. Weirdly enough, the best character to me was Cassie, Ant-Man's daughter. She was excellent, and I really don't think people give child actors enough credit, because I forgot that she wasn't just some child that wandered onto the set and they were just like, oh, she looks like she could be related to Paul Rudd, let's just run with this. Like, no, she did a really great job and got me weirdly emotional midway through the movie. She was awesome and was the only character that got like different shades of her. Like, she was so fascinating to me, and I wish that they gave as much attention and care with the other characters that they did with her. Speaking of other characters, don't expect to see a lot of Janet in this movie. She's on the poster and everything, but she doesn't show up until the very end of the movie. So yeah, the characters are interesting in theory. Conceptually, they're very interesting, but this movie does nothing with them, and it kind of just feels like things just happen and they just go with it, and nothing really changes or grows within them. That's one of the biggest detriments of having a serialized film franchise like the MCU is. Well, I didn't stutter at all. That there's not that pressure to kind of have these characters grow like every other movie practically has. Like, there's no pressure to kind of say, okay, here's how Ant-Man changes from the beginning to the end of this movie, like, because he doesn't really at all. And because we know we're going to see him in Infinity War Part 2, we know we're going to see him in the next event, we know we're going to see all these characters again countless times in the future. So, like, the directors and writers either can't or don't want to kind of change them that much. There have been attempts, but those attempts have basically been retconned by the next movie in the franchise. So it's like, that's a shame. I'm going to move on to the plot. The plot was interesting enough. It kept me entertained throughout the entire thing. The entire movie is just about everyone wanting Janet back for their own particular reasons. Scott wants to make amends for the previous few movies. Hank wants to see his wife. Hope wants to see her mom. And there's just other characters that want her back for their own nefarious reasons. And it's interesting. Ghost in particular, again. But that's just because she's super pretty. I mean, she is. and her power is cool, and her story is really cool and sympathetic, and I thought that was awesome. Next is the writing. The writing was weak to me. Like, there were a lot of jokes, not as many as Ragnarok, but most of them fell flat for me, much like Ragnarok. But with Ragnarok, it was like I was embarrassed for half of the movie because there's so many jokes and none of them worked for me. For this one, I wasn't really embarrassed, but it felt kind of like they were pandering, like Luis does his storytelling thing, which was cool in the first movie, but I guess Marvel caught wind that people loved it. They're like, oh, people really love that. Let's give him like 10 more of those. The people on the internet really loved when Luis told a story, so let's have him tell 15 stories. No, 30 stories. Like, it was just, it felt like so much, and it felt like they were just like foaming at the mouth to kind of give fans what they crave while not giving us anything that we want whatsoever. I'm particularly pissed off about the end credit scenes. There's two. There's one immediately after the big fancy credits, and then after the long boring credits. The long boring credits one is kind of, it's supposed to be a joke, but it feels like it's spitting in your face. And the first one is very subtly spitting in the face of people that I don't want to say anything, but it felt kind of disrespectful to me. And talk to me if you watch it and, tell me your thoughts. But it felt, rude to me. I was kind of angry after the post-credit scenes. But, yeah, so the writing was just, the jokes didn't really work for me. But it was, a few did. There were a few, like, really funny bits. But it felt kind of, like, bland, felt kind of blah to me personally, but I'm sure everyone loves it because everyone always loves all of the Marvel movies. But I felt like they could have done more. I felt like they could have done better with the jokes and the humor and the writing. But it's a Marvel movie. You know what you're gonna expect. All in all, I think that I guess I'll give it a rating. I'm gonna give Ant-Man and the Wasp a 3.5 out of 5. Here's why. All in all, I think Ant-Man potentially could be one of the most fascinating characters in the MCU, but he keeps getting saddled with these mediocre movies and like this C-list status in the MCU, and it's just very disappointing to me. I hope in the next movie he kind of does more. I hope in Avengers 4 he gets more shine. He was really cool for those 2 seconds in Civil War, which they do talk about quite a lot in this movie. And I'm glad that Marvel is getting more creative and daring with their villains, and I'm glad. Oh, the visuals. My biggest thing. Another biggest thing, I guess I have a lot of biggest things. My biggest thing is that the visuals were so stunning, like absolutely stunning, flawless. There were a few like weird, wonky bits with the growing and shrinking when they're like out of their suits. Like it looks kind of awkward, like the CG budget just like they blew all of it at one point. But besides that, it's a beautiful movie, and it feels like Marvel's really just flexing how much money they have as opposed to actually, I guess, investing time and effort into making these characters and movies more deep and worthwhile. Because I guess A, they know they're going to make a stupid amount of money anyway, and B, they know people are going to love it no matter what they like shit out. So it's kind of our fault, kind of their fault. I hate capitalism, but it's a beautiful movie. So that's definitely a huge, huge perk. But I gave it a 3.5 just because it's kind of a low 3.5, because I just wish that it was deeper and I wish there was more to it. I'm glad they went with a slightly more serious tone with Ghost Story, and I'm glad they're swaying away from like the purely slapstick kind of stuff. But it's still a comedy, still an action, still a Marvel movie. You know what you're gonna get. That's basically it. I didn't end up doing my American Animals or Incredibles, I was about to say Avengers, or Hearts Beat Loud reviews, which I've seen all of them. I actually gave all of those 4 stars. I just never got around to recording reviews for them. But if you want me to talk about them, feel free to hit me up. They were all really, really great. Incredibles in particular was super duper good. And yeah, so that's really all I have to say about the movie. It just gets me bigger, even more on the hype train for Avengers 4. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see how people respond to these post-credit scenes. But that's all I really got for you guys. Probably would have had more if I recorded this last night, but I was so freaking tired. I like went from work to the movie, and then I just passed out when I got home. So I got home at like 1. But that's about it. I'm about to hit that lovely point where my camera shuts off on me, so Like, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna be hitting you guys, you K-pop fans out there. Keep waiting. I have some more reviews for the mixtapes and everything coming soon. So look forward to that. I'm still trying to get rid of the sickness that I've had for a week. Wish me luck on that end. And I guess I will see you guys next time. See ya.